Paper hands, old soul, man, as for me, that's blasphemy, a catastrophe. I accumulated, made it back massively. We stack sats in fat bags, that massive backpacks, relaxing, that's that, it has to be. A couple racks, flip that, in fact, smashing, grab, attack, hurt the bulls, he's back. As for me, I never left.
We up and I'm feeling like a new me. Stacking new sets, some new E. NFTs all up you need. All up, back in my zone like 2-3. All time high, hit a new peak.
Let's go.
Homie, the Bulls is back. I said the Bulls is back.
Hey everybody, Nate Pumpy Pump. Welcome to the show today. We have reached an all-time high, a new all-time high for Bitcoin at $67,000 today. Yo, Aaron.
And today we are going to talk about crypto and global international adoption. We thought we'd bring our little former Chinese citizen on camera with us today. So say hello, Chucky. Meow meow.
Yeah, he expatriated and he's now an American
citizen.
Yeah. I think there's a really great report here I want to show. Oh, first of all, let's talk about what I just showed you guys. Shout out to 88 Nate and Lil Bubble. I bought one of their unique NFTs and I encourage you to go and do the same. It's a rad song, rad. And so I wanted to share just that fire verse with everybody today. So let's hit this report up today that we're going to talk about for the show. Where the heck is it? Oh, you know why? Because our computer died on us. I'm sorry, guys. I'll edit this out, I promise. There we go. All right, Aaron, I'm going to spit out my gum.
What we're looking at, and the reason I think this is important is because in America, sometimes we get a little self-centered, a little insular, and we think about how we are in terms of whatever we're talking about. And I think a lot of the crypto stuff that people talk about is always just based on America. But the thing is, with Bitcoin and crypto assets, it's a global phenomenon. So I think it's really something that a lot of people don't focus on, but is really important.
You know, it's going to happen with any country that's sort of on top. And you're going to very much get a point of view when you read any of the traditional media sources, you know. And I don't care if it's got a left-wing or right-wing slant. The bottom line still is it's going to have that American-centric point of view. And so, I mean, honestly, I really feel like the target audience for this video is American investors because, you know, Aaron and I have spent, 7 years out of the country living in other places. And the rest of the world's come up a lot, you know. And this is something we often don't think about in America. As a result of that, cryptocurrency is definitely an attractive asset class. And this report that we're going to cover today definitely validates that. Before we go into it, though, I want to please encourage you, if you guys like this content, to hit the like button, subscribe, and if you could share this too with other people that you think might find interest in this cryptocurrency Bitcoin analysis, then please do that. Thank you.
This was done by Chainalysis.
Yeah, Chainalysis, yep.
They looked at global crypto adoption from 2019 to 2021 in July. And so there's some pretty interesting things if you look at it. They looked at 3 different categories. These were the ones that they viewed as significant based on the analysis they did.
Yeah, and so we got the on-chain value received right here, which I can't highlight. On-chain retail value received, and then the P2P exchange traded volume. What's confusing about this when you look at these numbers in this flow chart is it's just number that it's a ranking actually. So when you see, for example, India right here is 72. When I initially saw it, I said, wow, it's got way more volume than Vietnam. That's not true. Vietnam is ranked number 3 in this metric, and India would be ranked number 72 in this metric. So therefore, Vietnam has way more P2P, in other words, peer-to-peer exchange traded volume.
So another thing, the reason that this is important is that the reason that they have chosen these countries is based on their overall index ranking. So that's over here on the left. And so that's why they have these particular countries highlighted.
One question I have for the authors of this report, when they talk about on-chain value received, does received imply inflows only on-chain? Or does it sort of imply like, let's combine all the total on-chain activity? Really like a total, when they say received, okay, that's like, we're gonna add all the on-chain activity and that's what we're gonna count as received in a given country. I don't know, but it's a question I have. But here's the 3 trends we're going to get to. Global crypto adoption is skyrocketing.
So yeah, if you look at this, they added up all 154 countries' index scores made of the 3 components that we talked about above for each quarter from quarter 2, 2019 to the present. Okay. So if you look at the chart here, you can see huge growth. I mean, huge. So especially since 2021 quarter one till 2021 quarter two.
It went from 2.5 right here. You can see where it's super low, and in a 2-year period, we shot up to 24. So that's huge. It's like
and if you look at that as a percentage, suggesting the global adoption, it's over 2,300% since quarter three 2019 and over 881% in the last year alone. So that's a huge amount of growth worldwide.
Yeah, I think you can think of the world, right, in terms of developing and developed countries. And if that's your paradigm, then along with that paradigm, you might think of cryptocurrency. If you're coming from a developed country standpoint, you might think of it like, wealth is going to sort of first accumulate in the wealthier countries in crypto and then sort of trickle down, like the rest of the world will follow. And maybe the rest of the world has sort of taken time and been more hesitant with the risk portion until they followed. But I want to argue something different that I've been arguing since 2013 as a Bitcoin maximalist, and that is that you're not going to just see like top-down Bitcoin. You might see that like from our point of view if you're in America or if you're in Europe or something, but or Japan. But the point of view is that that's not necessarily the only way that this is going to go down by any means. The crypto revolution is global, and there are different use cases for different groups of people and different audiences and different economic players. And we're definitely seeing huge growth coming like a grassroots revolution.
Yeah, and so there's a huge difference if you look at the data in terms of like how they're using it. So if you look at like emerging markets, they're using it to preserve their savings for currency devaluation. They also use it to send and receive remittances, which is like sending money to family and whatnot overseas, and they carry out business transactions. Versus the United States and Western Europe and Eastern Asia, that's mostly institutional investments. So that's like what a lot of people here talk about. So that's why we also wanted to point this out. Like a lot of people are using crypto globally for very different reasons than we are here in the US. When
I say top down too, I mean whales, okay? You're going to have more whales in wealthier nations. So those players are like the institutional players or huge like retail players like billionaires and hedge funds. And so, we tend to think of everything. We follow the business news. I'm watching Bloomberg. I'm looking at the S&P. Those are all great things. We do need to track those if you're going to be a good Bitcoin or cryptocurrency investor, you need to track these metrics because you got to do your due diligence. But one metric that I think is just overlooked all the time, it's overlooked by China watchers too, honestly, is the fact that trying to understand the rest of the world from their point of view. And if you do that, you're going to see that there's a huge reason why people want to get Bitcoin in some nations around the world.
Yeah, so if you look at adoption, emerging markets, how much is growing for person-to-person platforms. So that's Kenya, Nigeria, Vietnam, and Venezuela. They're really high because they have huge transaction volumes on peer-to-peer platforms.
Okay. Real quick, I just want to give a quick definition of what a P2P platform is before we go on, and that is the only one I know of that I have memory of is localbitcoins.com. When I first started getting crypto in China in 2013 and 2014, even then there were like issues with the government, periodically shutting down exchanges or not allowing financial institutions to work with exchanges. And so one of the issues was I had times where I couldn't get Bitcoin. And localbitcoins.com remained a constant source, but the fees were so high that I rarely used that method of getting Bitcoin, but it was still a method. And if you're trying to get Bitcoin and you don't want the government to really be involved in that because either the government is anti-crypto or anti-Bitcoin, or the government actually says, okay, if you're going to have a centralized exchange, then that centralized exchange has to follow a certain number of know your customer and anti-money laundering type things. Governments always think of that, in a positive way, right? They think of it like stopping crime, and it is, but there's a flip side. The more that you do that, the more you're going to unintentionally kick out people who won't be able to register on those centralized exchanges. And that's what we see in these countries. Kenya, Nigeria, Vietnam, Venezuela, they rank high on the index in large part because they have huge transaction volumes on these peer-to-peer exchanges. But why are they having the huge transaction volumes? Because they don't have access to the centralized exchanges, given the rules in whatever country they're in.
And we'll actually talk about that more because there's there's an interesting graph showing that with decentralized and centralized, that actually they don't have a lot of access to either of those. So
Yeah. Absolutely, dude. And Aaron found this report. Like, she's a badass.
I just wanted to talk about
this
it.
girl right here.
I just thought it was interesting looking at, based on our background, international, living abroad and whatnot. So
It excites me.
okay, so let's see. This one here talks about the monthly share of web traffic. So one thing, and this is from April 2019 to June 21. So if you look at it, one thing that's pretty interesting to see is North America, the line here is going
Light blue.
slowly. Yeah, it's
The light blue line is North America, and it's decreasing.
decreasing. Okay, so that's a lot less person-to-person crypto, which I mean makes a lot of sense.
Also, this is market share, just because the first time I looked at this chart, it's a hard one to get. But when you add all the lines together, the sum is 100. In other words, we're looking at the entire market of P2P exchanges like localbitcoins.com, and I'm not sure what other ones exist but different countries have different players. P2P exchanges, I didn't finish defining, is a way for two parties to come together, but not online usually. So it's like they might meet in the real world. The website's facilitating the transaction through some methodology that I'm unclear on, so I'm not going to talk about that. I haven't ever done a P2P exchange transaction because I haven't needed to, and I just waited until China would allow me to get back onto BTCC China, and that's how I would get my Bitcoin out of the country to the United States. But yeah, I just wanted to say that this is market share for all the different groups, and you can see the biggest market share is what do we got here?
Well, if you look at who's using it in terms of market share, you're looking at Central and Southern Asia. So that makes sense when you look at this at the beginning of this report, and it has Vietnam listed as number one. And you've got
I forgot
Latin America. So you got, those are the highest. They're nearly at 30% pretty much from this point here in July 2019. And there's a little bit of dipping and whatnot, but it's definitely on the higher end. North America's here in the middle. So that's not just the US, it's Canada as well. And then if you look down here, you've got that's Africa right here at about 10%.
Which color?
Dark blue. Which
Africa,
makes sense because, I mean, we were talking about this too. The other thing is a lot of people might not have access to internet as we know it. And if they do, they're using a phone or something like that. So makes sense why that's about 10%. And then we have here Western Europe, which is about 10%. And then Eastern Europe.
Western Europe is blue.
And Eastern Europe's here at green. And that's about 5%.
Chainalysis, I love you guys, but you chose 3 tones of blue to put in the middle. That's real easy to spot the trend there visually. But okay, let me try and summarize this very, very succinctly. I think what we're seeing is that the red and orange lines are increasing. That's Central and Latin America, Central and Southern Asia. So we got India, Vietnam, Thailand, those areas, and Latin America. Not surprising with the El Salvador news and what we're seeing coming out of Brazil. There's
a lot of news.
Right?
There's a lot of news in Brazil, which, I mean, we could probably talk about that another time.
But interestingly, North America and Europe are declining, and we see kind of sideways action in Eastern Europe.
Yep. So it's interesting to see that.
But P2P exchanges are, a lot of small buys are going on there. So I wonder if they're getting around fees. Because that used to be a problem, was the big fees. I wonder if some of these P2P exchanges are using Lightning or other ways that they're keeping the fees down. Because when you're talking about developing nations where the average person might only make $5 a day or less, those fees are going to be a huge component. And if we're seeing volumes increasing, to me that tells me fees are getting handled somehow.
Yeah,
they're going down.
They must be lower. Because how could they be using them for that?
The opportunity cost is too high otherwise, right?
So this next chart was something we were talking about earlier, and we said we would come back to cryptocurrency platform share of transfer by size. So this orange color is small retail. And if you look at decentralized exchange here, this graph here is exchange, merchant services, and then person-to-person exchange, right? So if you're looking at P2P, it's small retail, okay? So, and then they obviously, most people in small retail aren't going to have access like you would in our country. So this makes a lot of sense if you look at it. And that's one of the things we were talking about above, when we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, you can see just like that small retail piece as a piece of the pie. DEXs have it the smallest. and then P2P, it increases as you go up. And from exchanges to merchant services to P2P exchanges, DEXs, though, this is an important insight because you can see that large retail and professional investors have more access to DEXs. This is counterintuitive to the purpose of DEXs, isn't it? Because DEXs are sort of, the purpose, of course, is first of all the decentralization. But with the decentralization, you're supposed to get this censorship resistance and accessibility for the masses, right? This is supposed to be disrupting the banking sector. And clearly we see a lot of signs that it is. However, what worries me about DEXs currently is that the fees are so high on a lot of these chains that it's just not accessible to small retail on a global scale. Are you going to go and spend $20 on a gas fee if you come from a country where your income is like only $2 a day?
Yeah, for emerging countries, which make up a large amount of countries worldwide, that's not accessible at all.
And we have NFTs. We invest in Ethereum as well as Bitcoin. Like, we're mostly Bitcoin. So I'm not trying to bash Ethereum, but I'm just making a point that perhaps as the layer 2 solutions and Solana and things like that may help to make these problems smaller so that the small retail can get in.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
It's an important thing to look at least right now.
Because I think DEXs can solve a lot of problems long term, but we're in the infancy, like the newborn phase.
Okay, so the last thing it talks about is China and the U.S. dip in our rankings, which makes sense. I mean, we know a lot of the information based out of China, and
in general, China's going to dip on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Just because they got out of the crypto game, but the U.S. thing is interesting.
Yeah, well, it slipped from 6th to 8th. But I think the reason it slipped is because there's just so much more usage and adoption worldwide in other countries. I think that's the thing to see here. And I think that's the overall takeaway that I would say is really important for us Americans to understand is how much this is growing internationally. Like, I don't think we're losing. I mean, I think obviously we're going up in our usage and adoption.
Yeah.
But so is the rest of the world. And they're actually going higher than we are and faster than we are.
They are. So but only on certain things, like it's just P2P exchanges, we're just not using them. I don't think that's super important for us to worry about in the US. I think what's more important for us to actually worry about is that the rest of the world is like doing it a lot more, not that we're doing it less, because we're still using exchanges a lot in the countries where the bigger buys are happening. But it's just that the method of buying is different, I guess is what we should say.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting thing too, though, is that all this data is weighted for internet using populations. It's also weighted, they said up here at the top of the report, for the PPP, which is the purchasing power. Sorry guys, going all over the place. Where was it they talked about PPP?
I don't know.
Here
right here, when adjusted for PPP.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to this real quick because these guys ranked high because the huge transaction volumes on peer-to-peer platforms, like, we might say, well, those aren't huge exchanges or huge transactions because when you look at them, they might be $10, $15. But Chainalysis thought about that and they said, let's put everybody on an even playing field where we adjust it for, okay, what's the average citizen in a country make? Also, what percentage of that population is on the internet? We're going to only examine that percentage. They're trying to keep their, this is important methodology for statistical analysis, in my opinion. So that's a good thing, is what I'm trying to say here, in very complicated speak.
And then I think the last thing which I wanted to talk about, if you want to go back up to the very top.
Oh, sure.
So when we're looking at the numbers here for China, because I thought that was pretty interesting. It's on-chain value received is 1, on-chain retail value is 1, but P2P exchange trade volume is 155. Okay, so one of the things we talked about, and we thought this was an interesting point because
it is an interesting point.
We lived in China, and the way that it works is when they have, let's say they pass a new law, and they decide to go full force on it. We'll give you an example with the scooters, right?
Oh, yeah, with the scooters, yeah.
Okay, so they would decide, okay, in the city we lived in.
We used to both drive scooters in China, by the way, and we couldn't get driver's licenses because you have to pass a test in Chinese at that time, and honestly, it's like more work, and if you don't speak fluent Mandarin, it can be quite complicated, and we didn't get to a fluency level. Long story short, though, is you would...
Everybody would drive them anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody would drive their scooters to work, talking about all the people that worked there, and a lot of the people that worked at our school also didn't have licenses, and these are native Chinese citizens, and then as well as us and the other international teachers. So we would all drive around, and then we get like a text, or somebody at the school would find out that in our province, in our area, they decided again that they were, because, you know, the scooters were technically not legal in the city we lived in anymore.
Yeah.
And they would decide, okay, we're going to crack down on this right now. This happened twice while we lived there. And they cracked down on it, took people's scooters, whatever. It was like about a 2-week period where like everybody's scooters got confiscated. Well, slowly over time, everybody bought new scooters, it creeped back in, and then it was used again. And then it happened again like a year later. So the point is, I think with China, in terms of knowing how they work, like right now they're cracking down hard right now, but you never know when they're going to flip the coin and change, or when people are just going to keep doing it anyway.
Well, and this is the thing too. These are not zero.
No.
These are non-zero numbers.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm willing to bet they're going to remain non-zero on chain, because the Great Firewall hasn't worked in China in terms of getting rid of all internet, proliferation to websites that are undesired. There are Chinese citizens that get around it still, and they're going to get around Bitcoin as well. And right now there were those crackdowns, and they were big and they were visible. And right now, you're going to see very little activity. But those are going to go up a little bit more.
Yeah, you'll see things change over time. That's the way it works. It's.
Oh no, wait, they already are high.
They are high.
They're super
high. But like
high.
this
but
number
one
of
that's
155.
down. That's what I mean.
That's the thing that you're going to see change in the future. Well, we guess. I mean, we're guesstimating. This is based on previous experience, but so.
I'm just trying to say that they can't kill crypto. That's what I'm trying to say, because there's always going to be some people that need to get money out or away, and they're going to be scared. They're going to be scared that the anti-corruption crackdown is going to bring their family down. And so they got to get that crypto out. They want to get that wealth out. And some of them will take the risks, despite the punishment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because wealth is one of those things that Bitcoin passes down generationally. Like Michael Saylor talks about, it's literally energy sort of materialized into this virtual space that can be stored throughout time and space and then retrieved later. And so if you can do that 100 years into the future, like as people get it, they're going to try and do that more and more, in my opinion. It's just really, it's a knowledge gap at this point. Like as more people understand Bitcoin's properties, then that will happen more and more.
I think that was...
Did we wrap it up? Was that our last thing?
That was... Oh, it's just they were talking about what might drive next, the new wave of adoption, and they don't know yet. So they're just saying the clear takeaway for this is cryptocurrency has skyrocketed in the last 12 months, and the variation in the countries contributing to that show that it's truly a global phenomenon. So that's why we wanted to talk about it today, is just kind of like get everyone interested in looking at it, not just from our point of view, but from a global point of view.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 billion people on the planet. Okay, the United States makes up 5% of the population of the globe. And even when you look on chain in terms of how many transactions are going on, most transactions are not happening in the United States. And sure, you can make arguments about wash trading and small transactions, which we've heard those arguments for years and years and years. But more and more, it's not wash trading. More and more, it's legitimate trading that's actually happening worldwide, and it's real adoption. And I was going to show you guys the Google Trends report today, which I didn't prepare, but shoot, let me just get it. Okay, there we go. We got 90. Look at this, guys. Look at this. We have clear pattern of the higher lows, and we're starting to get local highs that get increasing higher and higher. It's time to say goodbye, guys.
It's time to say goodbye.
It's time to say
goodbye.
It's so
hard
to say... No, I'm not going to try that. Guys, thanks for joining us today. If you like the content, please subscribe to it, hit the like button, and share this with some of your friends or people who you want to help make money, because we believe that this will probably help people out. And please remember, anything you saw in the video today is not financial advice. It's just sort of like education based and analysis based on what we see and the insights we've had in the crypto markets. Thanks. Have a great day. Enjoy the all-time high.
Bye, peeps.